All right, welcome to the Chasing Winners College Football Edition. This is Kyle Massaloni here with a zoomed in a bit JP Lyon. I had to call it out. Sorry about that. We've been working on that for a few minutes here, trying to get all the tech right. But you should be happy about something else because you've been creeping up, creeping up, creeping up. My week zero, week one lead is finally gone.
Yep, that league got up to 7 games in week 2, and then 4 weeks later through week 6, I have a half-game lead over Kyle in the overall bets. Picked up 2.5 games this week. Big game with Texas Tech where I got the push and he got the win. Buying the hook worked out, but um, on the season now, Kyle, he went 2 and 3 and 1 on his podcast picks last week. He won his best bet, 6 and 10 overall. So on the season, he is 50 and 47 and 40, 20 and 1 on podcast picks, 3 and 3 on his best bets. I went 3, 2 and 1 on podcast picks, lost my best bet because BYU stinks, and I didn't see the Vegas pick until it was too late. And 8, 7 and 1 on regular picks last week. So I'm 50, 46 and 1. And then on the podcast, I'm actually 21, 13 and 1 still. But just 1 and 4 on my best bets.
Yeah, betting against Army last week worked well for me. It was the last minute change on the best bet. I was scrolling through the lines. I was like, wait, this really doesn't make sense. But it turns out people like to it's a thing, I guess, that people bet Army. So they usually adjust lines in their favor. So got a little lucky there seeing that, but hopefully this week's a better week. That the Canes lost again, so feeling a bit down on that. But let's get it back. I'm ready to get the lead back. Um,
Look,
let's hop into our first game here. So it's the Fox big noon kickoff. Still we'll never understand why the biggest games are played at noon, but here we are. Penn State on the road against Michigan. Michigan a 7 point favorite at home. So what are you thinking here?
uh, I don't know. These first two games are both kind of like it's supposed to be a good team against a team that's maybe wasn't supposed to be as good, but now they're kind of creeping back into that conversation. Uh, and both of those good teams are favored by 7. My feelings on both are pretty similar. It's just I have to trust Michigan -7 because they haven't shown me a real reason why I shouldn't trust it outside of playing every single Big Ten team close. Um, so I'm rolling with Michigan -7 because I don't really know how else to do it.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm not going to trust them. You mentioned playing Big Ten teams close. So I saw a stat the other day that 5 of their 6 opponents, besides Maryland, have total offense ratings that are not in the top 100. So Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, Iowa, and Indiana. And Maryland was the one team they played in the top 100 in offense, and it was a super close 34-27 game. So I I feel the opposite direction. I feel like Michigan has given me no reason to trust them this year so far. I know they're ranked high. I know they were hyped coming into the season. They lost Josh Gaddis, which as we're proving at Miami with our offense, probably helped them in the long run. But but yeah, I'm going Penn State +7 here. I think they have what it takes to I think they have what it takes to keep it close. They might not win outright, but I do think it's going to be within a touchdown.
Yeah, it definitely worries me. Does Penn State have the top 100 offense? Are they good?
Well, yes. So far this season, they've put up 35, 46, 41, 33, and then struggled against Northwestern last week, put up 17. But crushed Auburn 41-12 earlier
Oh
this
yeah, I
year.
remember that game. I was on Penn State.
Yeah, we both were, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so any more thoughts there?
Not really. No.
All right, let's move on to what's wildly the biggest game of the week. It's been a lopsided rivalry in recent memory, but the rivalry is really picked up and back this year. Historical game for the past millennium since 2020 since 2000. I don't think we've had one that's this big. Number 3 Alabama away to number 6 Tennessee. 3:30 on CBS. Alabama are 7.5-point favorites on the road. Wolf, what are your thoughts here?
Look, I said it was a similar game to Michigan one from, even though it's an extra half point and they're actually on the road. Michigan's at home. Um, I like Tennessee a lot. I do. Um, I just don't. I'm going based off of the trend of we bet on Alabama to cover big spread. They don't, and they almost lose. And then the next week, they cover a big spread, or they cover the spread against a probably better opponent. No, Arkansas wasn't better than Texas. They cover the spread. So I'm going with Bama to cover against Tennessee because I think Saban gets his boys up for this game.
Something that could change a lot in this game. Do we know if Bryce Young's playing yet?
I guess it would be no. No, we don't know. Not no that. Oh, that's last week. I don't think we know.
From last I heard earlier today, we don't know yet. I think that could end up making a huge difference in this game. Obviously, based on what we saw last week a bit, and Bryce Young's arguably the best quarterback in the country, so not having him makes a big difference. So the line's probably in the middle based on if they had him, if they have him, Bama might be 10-point favorites. If they don't, Bama's probably like a 4 3-point favorite, but I'm gonna ride with the uncertain side here. I'm gonna ride with he is not playing and go Tennessee plus 7.5. Because even if he is playing, we're still not sure if he's 100% or not, but that might not even matter if it's a risky pick. I just I love this Tennessee team. I love them at home here. They want this. Obviously, Bama's going to be up for the game, as you mentioned, but this is Tennessee's Super Bowl right now.
I feel like it's going to be, at least I'm hoping it's going to be along the lines of Clemson NC State years ago, where it's still Bama's conference and they're going to remind everybody this week. But if I had to guess, I would say it's probably going to be we're going to split this early slate of games. Either Michigan or Alabama will cover and not both of
them. Probably.
And if I were to pick differently, then I would go 0-2. So
probably that's the way this works out most of the time with big games. We split the favorites and underdogs, but I'm hoping both dogs could keep it close here. Next one, an interesting line in Big Ten land here. Number 8 Oklahoma State to be specific, because Oklahoma sucks. At number 13, TCU, both 5-0 teams coming into this game. Both have pulled off huge wins this season. This is the Big 12 seems to be producing huge games every week that could go either way. And here we go again with TCU as a 3.5-point favorite at home. You're our Big 12 guy here. What are you thinking?
I'm so sad that TCU won last week.
I am too.
It just hurts my soul.
And now Kansas's quarterback is injured. I don't think that was it for them. Sadly.
Yeah, it probably was. And now they're back to being 9-point underdogs against a terrible Oklahoma team this week, Kansas is, which I don't know how to pick that either. But as far as this game goes, it does fall in the lines of my system. Lower-ranked team at home, 3.5-point favorites. It's incredible that we have so many 3.5-point spreads on the podcast this week. You guys are going to find out just about every other game on the schedule is 3.5-point favorite.
Pretty much.
And it's a weird line. It's not the weirdest line, and it's not one that stuck out to Kyle earlier in the week. But when I saw it last night, my eyes raised a little bit, just because it's not. Oklahoma State is the team that was in the Big 12 championship last year, and they were top 10 team. They beat the piss out of Notre Dame last year in the Year 6 Bowl. I don't remember which one, Fiesta Bowl. And they've looked awesome to start the year outside of giving up 44 points to Central Michigan. So to see them as an underdog TCU here, it definitely gives you pause. Obviously, the winner of this game is probably almost guaranteed a spot in the title game, in the conference title game, I would say. And I'm really afraid that it's going to be TCU, just based on the line. So it's just because of the system, but TCU minus 3.5. I don't know how they're going to do it. I really don't.
That's where I'm at here as well. I actually wasn't as shocked as you were for some reason. Maybe I'm still just remembering the 55-24 shellacking against Oklahoma like that was something. Turns out Oklahoma's trash, but but it's just kind of something that was in the back of my mind when I'm picking this game. Probably shouldn't be, but I like TCU minus 3.5 as well, mostly because of the system, partly because I think they can pull this off. Their offense has been bananas this year so far.
Oklahoma State beat Baylor. They beat Tech and barely covered. I don't know. I like TCU to come into this game and say, hey, nobody picks on our big brother except for us. So you get out. We get to pick on Baylor, not you.
Yeah. Two of the. Yeah. So you guys, TCU gets to pick on Baylor, and then Baylor gets to pick on Texas. So.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed that's how it works out this year.
Would not be a bad season.
And now we're moving to the ACC. You mentioned a few more ridiculous 3.5-point lines here. I think this one takes the cake as the most ridiculous. NC State, who I once claimed to be the best team in the ACC, that's obviously not the case anymore, grinding out that ugly win against Florida State last week. I couldn't believe what I was watching. We were both talking to each other during that game, and we're just like, what is happening here? But traveling to the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, New York, to take on the new Kansas, the 5-0 number 18 Syracuse Orange, to set the stage for this game. because I have my father went to Syracuse. He's been telling me all about what's happening this weekend there. They're having their first ever Ring of Honor induction in Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, and Floyd Little, the legends of number 44, are finally getting inducted into whatever Ring of Honor they're introducing. The place is going to be packed. The place is going to be wild. Um, and Sean Tucker is who they're pushing as the successor to the number 44 legacy. Just to set the tone there, but I'm gonna go to you. It seems like it's a system play. It's a ridiculous system play. What the hell is this line?
It's a couple of things for me. First of all, I hate NC State. Um, I wanted them to. They should have covered that game. They essentially punted from the Florida State 35-yard line last week, up two, giving the ball back to Florida State. They took a delay of game to get back to the 40 and then punted.
They deserved to lose that
They
game.
deserved to lose.
Just off of that.
I was rooting against them so hard, and I had the tweet already. It was in my drafts. I showed it to Kyle. I was like, I thought someone told me that they were the best team in this conference, and they just lost to Florida State.
And then Jordan Travis just threw a pick in the end zone and ruined that for you.
You don't throw the ball there. That's not on him. It's on Norvell. There's no reason you should be throwing the ball. But so that's one side of it. The other side is I don't know what you were just talking about, but I just hope that Syracuse doesn't make this out to be a big game and then lose by 30. I'm still taking Syracuse minus 3.5 because of the system. I don't know that much about the ACC. I know that neither of these teams is probably very good in the long run, but I don't know. Syracuse is 5-0. I hope they get to 6-0. Same as I hope Kansas got to 6-0 last week.
So
Syracuse covered this game.
So yes, I'm also on Syracuse, mostly because of the system, partly because I watched NC State just that was so disappointing last week, considering I thought they were the best team in the ACC coming in.
Is Leary still hurt? I didn't see anything on him. Not that I looked it up because it's the ACC.
That is a big question. Give me 1 second.
I assume he is because if he's
NC State coach gives NC State coach gives no insight on Devin Leary return is the last article I'm seeing. It looks like he's still questionable, kind of the same situation of Bryce Young, of nobody wants to answer.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens on game day.
Well, and can I ask something, Kyle?
What's up?
Kyle, you're the one that picks the podcast games and picks the games we do every week. Why do you keep forcing ACC network games onto our podcast?
Look, it's the bet. It deserves to be here. We have an undefeated Syracuse team playing NC State. I don't know why it's on ACC network. I don't know why this is on ACC network and Clemson Florida State is on ABC primetime. We have another, by the way, we have another Clemson ACC game on ABC primetime.
That Clemson Boston College game last week was just so good. They had to do it again.
So good and really drew the ratings. To
be fair, would you have rather watched NC State Florida State on ABC last week? Would that have been a better?
Well, I still watched it on ACC network.
Well,
so
yeah, I did too, but...
and I don't think anything would have been a ratings draw going up against Texas A&M and in Alabama there, but it was that was a terrible game, and You said you may mention that FSU game a little later, but yeah, I hope Syracuse remains undefeated here. I hope Sean Tucker just runs all over NC State here, proving Jim Brown proud for calling him the future of Syracuse running back. So we'll see what happens. I'm on Syracuse -3.5. JP's on Syracuse -3.5. What the hell is going on?
I do actually have another play on this game. We're recording on Wednesday night, and that's too early for Ryan to make a college pick. But I did message Vortex from the Freemium DFS last week because he said UCLA last week, and he was correct. So I said, well, screw it. You can have another one this week. He said NC State +3.5.
Oof.
I
All
hate
right.
it, but take it for what it's worth.
The best team in the ACC. and now we move back to the SEC. I'm not going to force you to talk about the ACC anymore on this podcast this week, but that's only if you want to bring it up in a best bet or something. We have Mississippi State, who have been quite the juggernaut recently. Don't know how after that LSU loss, I thought it was going to be over for them, but here they are. They've just been crushing teams. Traveling to number 22 Kentucky. When we were sourcing lines and picks earlier, they were Mississippi State were -6.5. Now they're -4.5, but we'll run with the 6.5 line because we took them earlier. So what are you thinking?
We go from an ACC network game to an SEC network game. I don't know what we're doing here.
Yes, all of the conference networks this week we're hitting. What's next? We'll hit the Pac-12
network
that nobody gets on the anywhere but the West Coast.
I actually get Pac-12 network now.
That's crazy.
It was on my sports package. I had to add that to get I think I wanted Big Ten network, and it just came with a bunch of stuff. So I have Pac-12 network, and I have all the regional ones too. And they look like shit, but I'll have all the regional ones too. So if they ever play on Pac-12 network at the same time, I can watch whatever game I want. And I have the ACC network, I have SEC network, I have everything.
Amazing. We don't get Pac-12 network out here, but I do have everything else.
But yeah, this game, the line's never gonna stabilize unless we know if Will Levis is playing or not. And I don't think I should be taking Kentucky here. Because I should not have taken Kentucky last week. And the only reason that I should have taken Kentucky the week before was because Levis was playing and he played well. So if Levis doesn't play it, then I don't know why I'd be taking Kentucky. And yet I'm taking Kentucky. I'm taking Kentucky +6.5 because neither of these teams are that good, and it's a touchdown. If I was betting it, which I will eventually, I'll probably take a half point on it or by the hook. But I don't know. I don't like this game. I don't. I don't bet it.
You should have told me not to choose it for the podcast.
Well, there was nothing better.
Objection. But yeah, hey, I could have chose that Clemson versus Florida State primetime ACC killer. But
I did not want to finish the podcast with 4 straight 3.5 point spreads. That seems excessive.
But yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the intro to this game, I've been very very impressed with Mississippi State since that loss to West Virginia to I'm an idiot LSU, but since the last three games they put up 45 on Bowling Green, whatever, 42 on Texas A&M, who I think defensively are pretty good. Turns out they're terrible against the run because Miami ran all over them but couldn't find a way to score. Mississippi State, who run an air raid offense under Mike Leach, ran ran all over them somehow. But whatever. Yeah, 42 points. We're not talking about Texas A&M here. We're talking about Mississippi State. And then 40 on Arkansas. So they have just been cooking up. Obviously Kentucky is a solid defense, especially at home, as we've been seeing. But coming off a loss to the Cox, but it's Cocktober though, so it's acceptable.
Yeah, I wish you would have told me that.
But yeah, it's not a real thing.
Oh.
I I love what I've been seeing from Mississippi State, whether Will Levis plays or not here. I do like them to win. I like them to cover -6.5 if Will Levis doesn't play. If Will Levis plays, it'll probably come down. It seems like the -3, -3.5 range, which would be hilarious because of all of the 3.5 point spreads this week. But I'm on Mississippi State either way in this case. And finally, the game that I said we weren't going to talk about the Pac-12 until we got to this, but we got detoured last week by another one. USC, number 7, on the road against now number 20 Utah, coming off that loss to UCLA. But what is going on here? They're coming off the loss to UCLA. USC 6-0 has looked pretty impressive so far. Utah are 3.5 point favorites at home. Why?
What's the Windhorse thing? No. Why? Why would they do this?
Why would they do this?
It doesn't make any sense. This to me is more surprising than the Syracuse spread. It's more surprising than the TCU spread. This is the weirdest line of the week. And so, for me, it's very easy. I'm going to take Utah. I did just see that USC is 3-0 against teams that lost to last year this year, which does not make me feel any better. But you have to take Utah. It doesn't make any sense. It's never going to make sense. But I'm going to profit on the 3 games that are 3.5 point spreads in the podcast this week. I know I'm going to, because Vegas won't lose those. Doesn't make any sense, and I'm going to take it.
So you're right. Vegas is going to profit on those 3, but I think they go 2-1, and I go 3-0 here on these 3.5 point spreads. I say that, and then I'm going to go 0-3, but
no, you won't go 0-3 because then they would go 1-2.
Yeah.
We'll go 1-2. They'll go 2-1. So one of those first 2 games will not work, but this one definitely will. It's definitely Utah -3.5 because Kyle's on their side.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Why do I sometimes just think too much and say this just makes no I think too logically. We talked about this earlier in the year to where I'm like, this makes no sense. I have to do the line that makes sense. But I'm
the best of us. It happened to me with BYU as my best bet last week.
I'm diving into it again. I hope this. I fingers crossed this one goes well for me. USC minus plus 3.5. I almost said minus 3.5 because
minus 3.5 if you want.
No, I don't want it. I want the 3.5. USC plus 3.5 on the road against Utah. Why? Because it just makes too much sense. We'll see what happens.
The better team that's supposed to make a run at the CFP, that has the great recruiting class, great head coach in his first year. They haven't looked. I mean, they've looked beatable at times, but no one's beaten them, and Utah just lost to UCLA. So why wouldn't you bet them?
Because the line's 3.5 the other way. That's
there you go.
Well, I'm gonna get caught out on that clearly, but none of those are definitely my best bets this week. But JP, what's your best bet?
So, I was looking at Clemson, Florida State, because Florida State should not be a 3.5 point underdog, even at home. That doesn't make any sense. But I can't take Florida State as my best bet, even though I will probably end up betting it. I can't take them as my best bet because I don't want that to happen. I would rather Clemson win and cover and beat the crap out of Florida State. So I can't have my best bet be Florida State plus 3.5. So I'm going to go with something I want to happen. I'm going to take Minnesota minus 6.5 against Illinois. Why? Because, they're unranked, which is a little hurtful because they didn't have Mo Ibrahim last week. He's back. Illinois is starting Aaron Sikowski, which I sent you his stats last week. Do you know what Aaron Sikowski's stats were last week for Illinois in the 9-6 game against Iowa?
What were they?
He was, as I saw, time. So Tommy DeVito was 6 for 11 for 42 yards and got hurt. Sikowski comes in, goes 13 for 19 for 74 yards and a pick. So completions-wise, yards per completion, he was just over 6. And yards per attempt was under 4. Both quarterbacks' yards per attempt were under 4.
Yikes.
So I'm going with the backup quarterback continuing to not produce. And Mo Ibrahim coming back for the Gophers is pretty big. So I'm going Gophers here.
Awesome. It wasn't in the top 3 that I was looking at, but I saw that and I was like, I kind of like the Gophers too. But the 3 games that I were looking at, two reside in the ACC. One is about as random as it gets. I still don't know which one I want to go with here. You know what? I'm just gonna do it. It was the first one I said when I saw it. UConn plus 9.5 against Ball State. Oh my! I can't actually.
So what were your other 2 games?
So the other 2 games
so that everyone can take them and go 2-0, and then you lose the UConn game.
All right, so you know what? I'm doing it again. It worked for me last week. I'm changing my best bet mid podcast. No. I'm torturing you.
All right. So hold on. So you said UConn already. Why do you like UConn? Just go all the way through everything you didn't pick.
Damn it. I actually liked UConn because they're not too bad this year. They are bad. They're 3-4, but
they're not as bad as they normally are.
They're not as bad as they normally are, and they beat Fresno State, which is Moderately impressive win for a team of UConn's very shitty caliber.
Yep.
So I think they can cover. I think they can cover 9.5 against Ball State. But you know what? I don't know enough about those teams. I don't know enough about either of them. So it's not going to be my best bet, even though it's probably going to end up hitting now that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
The other one I was looking at was Miami versus Virginia Tech. It's a homer play. It's mostly because Virginia Tech sucks, absolutely sucks at home, and people just can't wrap their head around it because enter Sandman. I think the books wrap their head around it with Miami as 7-point favorites. Virginia Tech sucks and they suck at home. What is their but the one I'm actually gonna go with as I'm probably gonna bet the Miami one separately because I'm an idiot that bets them every week. But but the one I'm actually gonna go with here, the Tobacco Road rivalry, North Carolina Duke. I'm gonna go North Carolina -7 here on the road as my best bet. Normally a basketball rivalry. I get it. Duke has looked Duke has looked decent this year, coming off a loss against Georgia Tech now though, which is But North Carolina has been solid. They lost to Notre Dame, but that was Notre Dame in absolute wounded animal mode. Other than that, they're putting up an obscene amount of points every week as they always do. I just don't think Duke can keep up with this team. Drake May, QBR of 91. That's ESPN's normal like out of 100 system. That's ridiculous. Drake May has had a hell of a year. I just don't think Duke can keep up with them scoring. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, possibly an over under to look at. I'm not sure what it is. But it's 67. So yeah, the book's caught on to this one's going to be ridiculous. But yeah, North Carolina outscore them, cover the touchdown spread. That's my best bet of the week.
Did you know the games that we talked about tonight, just in the podcast one, not even the best bets? The over-unders ranged from 68.5 to 43.
Yeah, we got a wide range this week.
And those games were back to back. Two very different 3:30 slate games.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be a fun week of college football. I feel like they've all been this year. We haven't really had a dud terrible week yet, I feel like, unless at least to watch. Betting wise, this week was terrible for me, but to watch, we haven't really had a bad week yet. So fingers crossed that continues. Hopefully, I didn't just jinx it. I'm not gonna forget this week. Like, share, subscribe, do all that.
Support the podcast. Kyle, last week actually wasn't your worst week on the season. Because the week before you were 5-10, not 6-10.
It's just a brutal stretch. It's bound to turn around. Fingers crossed. I still have a winning record on the season somehow, even with those two terrible weeks. That's how good I was the first few. So hopefully I could get back to that here. My best bet's still the best record on the podcast. So pay attention to that Duke North Carolina game.
Pay attention to those 3-3 best bets on the season. That's pretty good. It's better than 1-4 and 1-4-1.
Yeah, it is. So hopefully that gets on the winning side for me this week. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope, I'm scared to death of the Baylor West Virginia spread tomorrow night, and not looking forward to watching that game.
Oh, I am looking forward to watching Miami play at Lane Stadium because Virginia Tech is so good there, and Enter Sandman is just so powerful that it wills Virginia Tech on to wins. lies.
Imagine if like for the next decade, next 50 years, the only game Virginia Tech ever wins at home is against the only one they ever win.
Is against Miami. I don't know what I would do. That would be devastating. My whole myth argument would be gone because they beat my team every year.
And it would still be accurate too because they have a terrible record at home, but it's just they win against one team every year.
Oh, that would kill me. On that note, because JP wants me to die. Um, um, we're what if? Why? Yeah, it's time. I'm gonna sign off here.
Why won't you subscribe to the podcast?
Good question. See you next week, and see you for NFL. Actually, we're gonna actually do one this week.
Yeah, we're recording tomorrow, so
Fingers
I get
crossed.
to do that while I watch the Baylor game.
Best of luck with that. That's gonna be entertaining for the rest of us.